Hello everyone. So we have our next speaker is Fadi Azhari and we're marketing of StarRocks. So yeah, let's start.
Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. Is this the speaker?
No, it's in there.
Oh, it's on. Okay, great. Well, thanks everybody. Hello. For folks on the Zoom call or looking forward to our conversation today, I'm delighted to be here. But before I get started, just want to share a little anecdote. This is my first time visiting my alum. I'm an alum of USC actually, and years and years ago, I went to the electrical engineering school here. Got both my undergrad and grad, so it's really nice to be back on campus and be invited to speak here in this opportunity. A little bit about StarRocks. So StarRocks is a 2-year-old company, fairly new. We're startup Series B funding. We're located in San Mateo, California, up north. We're a remote organization, so we have lots of folks on the team across the board. We're about 120 employees, but we're so excited. We've been really focused on solving specific problems for real-time analytics. I recently joined only 3 months ago, so I'm fairly new to the team. I'm building marketing for them here in the organization. And we're just a quick thing about us, and I'll start about the context of digital transformation very shortly here. We are focusing specifically on big data, massively parallel, real-time analytics. So we're talking about thousands and thousands of users and really trying to crack the code of looking what's out there. What are the users' pain points? Why do people need something different today to really achieve that digital transformation at scale? And how we might be able to help them. So I hope you'll find this session interesting. And I also invite you at the end. We have a little bit of time on Q&A, but we'll probably run out of time. So I want to make sure you have the opportunity to stop by our table. We have a table out there. We have the same information deck. We also have a solution architect on hand to actually go through any of your technical questions, deeper dive conversations about your use cases, what might interest you, and how might align. So, and with that, I'll get started. So just from the 10,000-foot level challenges that are facing the organizations that are really transforming their organization to add more services and scale that in real time based on end user needs. So some of the digital transformation challenges come with being able to add those new value-added services and do them in real time based on end user needs. And they need to do it efficiently though. Can certainly cluster together a set of solutions, but it might not be done in a low total cost of ownership perspective. They also want to be able to get insight from their data and to get it not only instantly, but sometimes it's changing and it's changing in real time. So I always say that real time is real when you're really acting upon data that's changing or being deleted, right? At the same time, you're not waiting seconds or minutes to reload your system to actually do that. So those are very critical. And I'll have a use case at the end that illustrates that. Airbnb, who's a customer of ours, and how they're using it. And I'll also talk about a big social media company that's using it as well. So the other thing that they're facing as they transform their organization to become much more digitally aware, they need to make sure they understand that the insight coming from their end user and the data they have internally is really well interconnected, because they can act upon changing the services, improving the services, and act upon the underlying architecture for their database so that actually they can react to it in real time, right? So there's an interconnect between the end user services and what they're measuring and what they're measuring internally and how they can improve efficiently together. That's what makes organizations that are really digitally transformation aware better than others. So that's one point. And additionally, they need to be acting on real-time data, but also on historical data, because they're eventually where they want to go with the advent of AI, for instance, you want to be able to predict what might be the set of services that you want to improve or add to your organization. So that's the fourth point. There are other challenges, but so those that really bubble up in my mind. And so to deliver on all these vectors, right, you could cobble up different solutions to the market, but it adds huge complexity and doesn't even, not just the complexity, it doesn't deliver on that premise of getting the real-time need, even if your data is changing, right? So we call it the instant enterprise. So when you digital transfer, you're able to really act instantly on it. So that's the high level. So what are the challenges? So what I'm going to do is take you through the challenges from a database perspective that answer or attempt to answer to this digital transformation and how we at StarRocks are solving them. And then I'll cover a quick use case or two at the end. So just from a database perspective, we probably have heard a number of times, if you're a data infrastructure engineer, you're looking at what do I do in order to achieve the speed for my data. And the schema so far has been, let me denormalize the tables, and that way I have flat tables, I can act upon the data. The problem with that is every time you change the data, it adds delay because now you have to, flatten the table and go back or deal with a big flat table versus a number of smaller joint tables. And that adds time, it adds extra hardware, a cost, development time, and so on and so forth. And as I mentioned prior, this does not really help with digital transformation because if your business is changing daily and you really need to act quickly on a flat table, it becomes a problem. And certainly there are a number of players out there like Implied Druid or ClickHouse, that have taken that approach. Unfortunately, what we heard from customers is that that's not giving them the agility of speed, of real time, because there's real time, but there's a preface to the word of real time, which is how can I get that real time in an agile way quickly, right? So that's one. The other part is, and I sort of mentioned this, if you're updating your data or you're deleting your data, you're forced to do that in the current schema out in the market in your database, right? So, and you need to do either merge or read or do replacement. That takes time. Time means that takes time from your real time, right? And we're talking about a delay. And that's why you see what you see today is that forces minutes of waiting versus seconds. Our target, and I'll talk about the value proposition at the end, is we're really targeting the seconds to sub-seconds real time, even when the data is changing. And the query performance obviously struggles because of these updates and deletes. And there is many of those use cases that are today what I call the next generation workloads, including AI, real time at the edge, is difficult to achieve. It's not going to get any easier. I have a background in AI prior to joining the company StarRocks. I've led marketing for a couple of AI startups, specifically real-time at the edge, inferencing and training. And those kinds of workloads are going to even make it harder for real-time data to happen. If you're changing your data, you're learning from your data at the edge, but you want to incorporate that learning and quickly, right? So whether you're doing inferencing or training sets. The third one is the concurrency. So whenever you are acting out upon your data, because if you focus on big data, you obviously want to get data from multiple sources and inputs. And I talked about the edge, that certainly is the case. So if you are a company that's relying on thousands of users that are providing intelligence to your organization, actually, because you're adding new services, you want to be able to support concurrent users, but not in hundreds and thousands. And we have, I'll speak to some of the examples we have with a customer that needed that, right? And today, if look at what ClickHouse, for instance, which is one of the vendors we definitely compete with in that space in real time, is they can only support about 100 concurrent queries, right? We support up to 10,000 queries. in our platform. So that's the third. And then finally, the ability to manage all this. If you scale out, you need to do balancing, rebalancing of your nodes, the server and compute. A lot of the solutions out there rely on third-party components. We've integrated a lot of that ease of use inside the platform. And the data pipeline is complex because you are really dealing with a distributed environment. And that, of course, doesn't make IT folks or even line of business people happy about the total cost of ownership, right, of your service. So where does StarRocks come in? And I'll speak to those 4 points. These are examples of customers that are already using our product. Obviously, you all know Airbnb, Lenovo, Tencent, some of you might know, Trip.com. WeChat is a app in China. Didi is another customer in China. But I'll speak a little bit about the Airbnb use case at the end. So net, we support blazing fast queries, OLAP, and ad hoc in sub-seconds. As I mentioned, there are about four things that we do in a very differentiated way. The ability to support sub-second query latency. We support both flat table or multiple joins. So if you're a data engineer, you don't have to worry about what if, should I do this? Should I do the flat table? We have better performance when you're doing multiple table join schema, but we certainly are already better, 2x better, even in a flat table schema, right? So that's the kind of order of magnitude you should think about. And we support lots of, given the scalability of the platform, we support billions of rows. The other part was the data itself. I talked about data freshness. So being able to do, if your data is changing or being deleted, you can do it, and you can still support your high-speed data ingestion. You get your real-time updates and deletes at the same time. The number of concurrent users. We have one particular user that is, it's a social media app, and it's 10,000 users at the same time, concurrent. So that's really what the power of the intelligence of real time. Because if you think of real time, and if your limited set of where your inputs are is less than or less than what you would want to accomplish to get better data, so you can do the business intelligence on it, the more you can support, the better you are. You're going to have better data set, right? And you'll be able to act upon it. And finally, we really have simplified the implementation so that that pipeline complexity in ingesting the data, getting access of what's going on with the data, and delivering on it is very important. And scalability. As businesses grow in digital transformation, they need to really scale their platform quickly. And we really have developed a very nice way of being able to do that at lower TCO. So from a queries perspective, I mentioned about the fast queries for both star schema and flat tables. You don't need to denormalize. You don't need to have a flat table. It's fine. This is a set of benchmarks that I invite you to, and I know it's a little hard to read on the slide here, invite you to go to StarRocks.com. We have it published. It's the industry standard benchmark on a number of parameters compared to actually ClickHouse and Apache Druid, which is, sort of the known entities out there. And, with that ability to support very fast query, you can, of course, have new use cases you can support, such as AI and IoT. So frequent updates, if you look at the diagram, the block diagram, the before and after here. So you see the simplification. We really replace actually a lot of the things that you would need, for instance, to build an ETL for white table, then you need Kafka, you need, and then you get the Druid solution after that. We really have simplified that pipeline so you can get that real-time processing very quickly. We support 10,000 concurrent users, and we're able to also provide resource isolation based on queries. So there's a nice security element or SLA, service level agreement on the service that you're trying to measure, that you're trying to improve, that you can achieve with the platform at a very granular level. And then the linear scalability is amazing. I'll talk a little bit about the technology. I have a slide on what's powering behind it, because now I'm just covering sort of the benefits. And it's really made easy to use. It's a very simple architecture. There's a front end and back end that communicate with each other. We're MySQL compatible, so you don't need to worry about actually rewriting anything. It's a very easy environment for you to immediately start taking advantage of the real-time capability of the platform. So just in a quick summary, in terms of benefits, number one, the query performance in seconds versus minutes. You can get that performance while the data is changing or deleted, high concurrency, and a simplified architecture with TCO. So what's behind it? The rocket science behind StarRocks is, it's a number of key features. Some of them are not net new inventions, so to speak, but like, for instance, the cost-based optimizer, which is already something that's existing before. We made some additional changes and innovation very quickly through the platform. As I mentioned, we were in existence for 2 years. We were able to deliver in the first 6 months this improved cost-based optimizer, so that you can do that joint query execution that I mentioned and gives you that performance boost. We've also developed vectorized query engine. Is something that's used across the industry in different technologies and platforms, but we took it up a notch by being able to really have that vector execution and isolation to CPU, memory, and storage layer across the board. So we're really able to optimize that performance. And then the pipeline execution, we leverage CPU cores with multi-core, multi-threads, so that you can get that massively parallel processing that I talked about. We talked about ease of use a bit. So we have also an intelligent materialized view. So when you go through the query acceleration, you're able to see throughout the board, you track where the data is and how you're doing on it and fine tuning it. So this is something that another invention or innovation, so to speak, we did. Also we did some isolation, as I talked about, so you can have, want to make sure that you don't have any runaway queries that can bring down the entire cluster. And we're 100% SQL compatible. So that's an investment protection story. If your IT organization is looking to bring a new platform in, but it requires a lot of hand-holding, there's a total cost of ownership involved, we've actually neutralized that. So I'm going to talk briefly about the Airbnb case. Minerva is their metrics platform, and that's their unified platform. So what they do is they have an internal platform for KPIs, but they also measure their end user usage in real time. So when you're booking, or when you're renting, or if you are somebody who's renting your property, so all that data is at the edge. It's not their own internal data, but their own end user data, right? So they wanted to make sure they had an integrated approach that has a lot of metrics and a lot of different dimensions, obviously, as you could imagine, given the growth of Airbnb. And they want to be able to have, they want to support different data consumption models and A/B testing, so that they can actually say, okay, well, this is what happened. This is the behavior we're getting from our end users. What can we do for what-if analysis, and how we use that data to improve the service in real time, literally. So in the first version, they have multiple flat tables because they wanted to get performance using Druid. And any of the changes of from the source requires refresh. And as we talked about, big flat tables are difficult to do because of the nature of the X and Y, number of X, Y tables. And it could take hours. So with StarRocks, they don't need to do pre-aggregation, first of all, like Druid does. And we are able to really support all those dimensions very quickly, because remember, they need to act on different parameters. And so we were able to do that. And only about 20% of the data needed to be de-normalized. And we put it in flat table because they had some specific corner use cases where we actually do achieve some performance for those workloads that are better in a flat schema. So we did that. And then the rest was in star schema, which really takes advantage of the innovation of what we have. So they were able to really significantly improve their data freshness and reduce their TCO. We have a full case study, by the way, on how the team there used our platform. It's in a form of a blog article. It's on our website, on StarRocks.com. Please visit use case. You can see the details. We also have back at Databricks event, the Data and AI Summit, they presented a whole session on how they used StarRocks and why StarRocks was so cool to achieve what they needed to do. I thought that was a very powerful session. This webinar is also available on YouTube. You can look it up and check it out. That's the end of the presentation. I did mention that we have another example of a social media app. I didn't have the slide for it here because I was trying to be mindful of the time that we have for the session today, but it's a big social media app in China. They have 200 million users, and that use case was focused not just on latency, but the number of users they had to scale and be able to support. They moved from ClickHouse to us exactly for that reason, is the amount of concurrent users they could do. And of course, the real-time results they were looking for in seconds. So with that, I want to thank you for participating today. If you have some questions, overview questions you want to take, again, feel free to come by to our booth and have deeper conversations that you want to dig in deeply into the technology with our solution architect, Michael Fernbach. He's at the booth, and I'll open it up now. Okay, guys.